All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna preface this with some info. A long time ago, I saw a TED talk about young mouse blood being given to old mice and how they're able to solve puzzles more quickly. They were able to find their way through mazes and things like that more quickly. So I think she was quite firm on the point that it didn't necessarily actually reverse the signs of aging. It was more about giving a sort of temporary brain boost. And then, of course, we find out this is separate to the adrenochrome conspiracy theory. There are people, like celebrities, that freely admit, let me find celebrity that have young person blood transfusions. This is something that is a known thing. This is not fake like adrenochrome is. These people are legitimately talking about doing this, have done this, will be doing this, and see this as a way to pretty much extend life and have the elixir of life. I think I saw a documentary about this guy as well and how unhinged he is. He wants to live to 120. He's taking human growth hormone pills to maintain his muscle mass. He's obsessed with warding off death. On Monday, someone published a part of a year-old interview with Thiel in which the venture capitalist, he's talked about this before, explained that he's interested in parabiosis. And parabiosis is weird, especially in the lab. Metformin that diabetic patients take is great for anti-aging. There you go. I also learned something the other day. It's something that diabetics use. It's amazing for weight loss. It's like a water replacement thing that they have, and now it's becoming really popular in, rich, wealthy societies in America as a weight loss thing. Apparently it's super effective. So this is the thing that's important about this is the one that came out recently, and I will find the original paper on it because I think this is the old one. This is up from 2014. There was one that came out really recently, and it was pretty much saying that the difference that it made in the mice was that it reduced all these markers of things like inflammation, kidney damage, liver damage, so circulating factors in the blood that are associated with aging. The blood transfusion actually reversed that. And then if you put the blood of old mice into young mice, those markers started circulating. And so you would think, okay, so the markers are produced when you have organ damage. And so you would suggest then maybe that the organs were damaged. But then I thought, no, if you don't filter out the blood or treat it in any way and you just chuck it into the young mouse, you're going to have circulating factors from the old mouse. So I wasn't quite sure how damning it was. I also wanted to read the research data on this. I'll just see if I can find. Here we go. I love it. This is why we do this. Stuff like this is exactly why we have this stream, honestly. The elixir of life remains the stuff of legend, but aging the young before their time may not be as far-fetched. I'm just going to stop here and say one thing. Scientists are criticized for gatekeeping their research quite frequently. There's a lot of really fair criticism to be given when you look at things like scientific journals and the associated paywalls. It is really hard to say that science is for the people when half the time when you Google a scientific article, it's just you have to pay $35 to Springer or whoever. Another reason that scientists are criticized for gatekeeping their science is because we often don't get up and talk about it. We're often a bit reluctant to do that. This is why. It's because some amazing papers been written, and then some journalist has done this as the tagline. They just condense it down into the most clickbaity, admittedly extremely accessible language, but you can just imagine the scientist who did this study just going, this is how they've chosen to report on my groundbreaking paper. This makes sense. There is some theory that if you use a sibling's poop and put it in the stomach of someone who is autistic, it actually helps the brain development. I'm sure for the blood transfusion, it has to be a certain type of blood. Well, that reminds me of a study that I heard about. It was a fecal transplant study in kindergarten kids and autism. And if I can find the study, I think it's this. Yes, this was crazy. Didn't it have something like a 90% clearance rate in autism symptoms? Small study. Oh, well, I'm an immunologist and I do stuff on the microbiota, and I can tell you that, it's pretty cool. The things you can do with it are amazing. And also just the information that you can glean from poop. Say you have like a subset of patients that all have an autoimmune disease like, I don't know, lupus, whatever. If you can take patient samples and look at different things like the gut microflora. So in the microbiota, you obviously have different populations of microbes and bacteria and things, and it's a different sort of bacterial landscapes and ecosystems. And bacteria do this really cool thing where they switch certain genes on and off depending on the environmental pressures that they're surrounded by. A great example is, of course, bacteria that live in sub-freezing temperatures. They have genes that they can switch on that help them continue to, do cellular respiration or whatever. And bacteria can also swap genes on things called plasmids, which are circular pieces of DNA. Bacteria trade these all the time. And so when you have a human and you have a gut and you have the microbial environment in there, you've got bacteria that are switching on and off certain genes and also trading genes. And you also have like a landscape that will be different in one person than to another. So what you can do is take patient subsets, so like, a subset of patients that have lupus, and then do a screen on their microbiota, and you get this amazing mosaic, this huge picture of all the genes that are being switched on and off, and genetic markers, and the actual populations of bacterial families that are living inside this person's gut. And then from that, you can actually map within those like further refined patient subsets, which will allow you to potentially further refine treatment. So if this patient subset does particularly well on this drug, this one doesn't. They both have lupus, but you can tailor your treatment plan for them because you've figured out that they are in distinct groups depending on their gut microflora. It's incredible. It's this whole new frontier of personalized medicine potential. And it's not very hard to do. We do it in our lab. We take samples and run them through and get these bacterial profiles and microflora profiles. Can't even talk. And you end up with these amazing heat maps is often how the data is presented. And you have a hierarchy of all kinds of things, like there's something called flywitch that's being upregulated in the stuff that we're looking at that we had no idea it was there. You've got things that are part of cellular respiration, ketosis. Yeah, so this study, I'm pretty sure, we'll see how much detail they go into. Is this about the autism one, or is this a little bit different? This is the gastrointestinal one by the looks of it. I smoke weed every day and apparently it has a positive effect on the gut bacteria. Let's look it up. Cannabis, gut bacteria, positive effect. The positive role of cannabis on the gut microbiome. I love that this website is called Pot Valet. It's like serious like weed science. It's coming from the website potvalet.com. Medical and health communities are all abuzz about the gut microbiome. It's true, we are. The gut microbiome is really crucial for health, its relation to cannabinoids. So cannabinoids, everything comes back to cannabinoids. When COVID first came out, I was reading about how smoking weed can potentially protect you from COVID, and it's to do with the cannabinoid receptors. Apparently smoking weed. So there's cannabinoid receptors in your body that you have whether or not you smoke weed. It's just a thing that's there in your cells. And they have roles in all kinds of stuff. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but when you smoke cannabis, the THC, that molecule interacts with these receptors. I'm assuming they were discovered in relation to people smoking weed or after people started smoking weed, but they predate that. They've always been there. And something about smoking weed was affecting these receptors, as it does just whenever you smoke weed. And that had something to do with COVID infection, and it was protecting you. So a lot of stuff is to do with cannabinoid receptors. It's really, really cool. I read 5% of the population died from COVID. Was it bull? Off the top of my head, I actually have no idea. A lot of people died though. A lot, like millions of people. Current COVID death statistics. I also hate Googling anything to do with COVID now. There's so much misinformation, like even Vader you can't use now because the anti-vaxxers made their own one. Let's go dashboard. 6 million deaths, 500 million cases. So if we go world population, hang on, I think, are we over 8 billion yet? Ooh, 7.97 billion. All right, so I can't even doing maths on stream. You guys are going to realize that I'm really fucking dumb. 6.5 million out of 8 billion. Now this is a fun number to roll around in your heads because the difference between a million and a billion is really difficult for the human brain to fathom, which is why billionaires are a bit of a problem, because humans can't really appreciate how much more money a billion is than a million, and how much time it would take an average person to become a billionaire versus a millionaire. Even if you worked like every day for your entire life and never spent $1, you would never ever become a billionaire. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, we are about to get Pandemic 2.0. I can tell you what it will be and I can tell you where it will be, but also you can just Google it, and there's like virus pandemic watch websites that tell you the same information. But recently in Europe's drought, it's been revealing Hunger stones. I don't want to get this wrong. We'll try and find the actual website. The new tool ranks viruses potentials. Here we go. Spillover, viral risk ranking application. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head it's going to be it's Southeast Asian. I think it's a henipavirus, but that just could be me playing favorites because I worked on henipaviruses. Here we go. We got coronavirus. We got that one. Risk score of 81. Another bat coronavirus. Oh God, there's so many. Spumavirus. The macaque foamy virus. Can you imagine that? What happened to grandma? She got foamy virus. I should laugh. I'm going to hell. How do we avoid the viruses? Well, I did a project on this. Every dollar that you put into things like preventing deforestation, for example, to reduce spillover events, you get back like 5-fold just because of the cost of how much money you lose through things like lockdowns, banning travel, banning trade, reducing human movement. So you can do it by obviously investing in research and programs such as virus surveillance. So a lot of virus surveillance programs, including a flagship one in America that Trump shut down just before we had the COVID outbreak. They'll go around to markets like the Wuhan seafood or fresh food market or whatever it was called, and they will sample animals and try and basically find the virus before it jumps from animals to humans. They also have virus hunting teams that work in the forests of Africa that are looking for the next HIV or Ebola. Another thing you can do is to prevent humans and animals from coming into contact with each other. You can set up really wide forest protected zones and create a buffer area between human settlements and forests. Basically, environmental protection acts. And they just prevent the pandemic from happening at all because they prevent animals and people from being in such, with each other. And yeah, so every dollar you spend on protecting forests, you get back 5-fold, just in the reduced risk of a pandemic spillover event happening. It's amazing. There is a concern that monkeys have now been able to get leprosy. No, really? I want to say is there a type of animal or monkey leprosy? Like, is it the same leprosy? Oh my gosh, the poor thing. Oh, wow. Who did nasty things with the monkeys? Who did it? Hands up. Who touched a monkey? 2 unconnected chimpanzee populations. They have caught leprosy from contact with humans. It was clear the skin disease is being transmitted between chimpanzee communities so they can give it to each other. Chimpanzees and it could have been picked up from other animal species. It may have come from sources like ticks or bacteria living in water. The disease can be treated in humans with antibiotics and was once thought to have been wiped out. For the last 2 decades, this debilitating illness has been found in red squirrels in the UK and armadillos in the Americas? That is chilling to think that diseases that we have wiped out are going to come back in animal form. And yeah, the earth is getting warmer for sure. It's changing everything. Hang on. Where was it? This is incredible. And this is going back to the earth warming up. This is nuts. An intense drought is shrinking rivers across Europe, revealing stones carved centuries ago to give future generations a warning of hard times ahead. The century-old boulders known as hunger stones reappeared last week. The boulder dates back to 1616 and is etched with a warning that says, "Wenn du mich siehst, dein Wien," which is my terrible German, sorry. "If you see me, then weep." They are chiseled with years of hardship and the initials of authors lost to history. So drought had brought back a bad harvest, lack of food, high prices. Oh, so I didn't realize they commemorated multiple droughts on the stone. Have the anti-climate change people had a field day with this? Are they like, look at the droughts that we've had? Although, look at that timing. 200 years between this drought, then 100 years, then 50 years, 10 years, 20 years. The thing about droughts that's really debilitating is plants require a shitload of water. If you've ever had plants growing at home, they require a lot of water. New viruses from the Arctic. Weird extra small viruses discovered in remote Arctic lakes. Here we go. New viruses unknown to humanity could emerge from Siberia's melting permafrost. Rapid warming in Russia could unleash viruses previously unknown to humanity. A climatologist has warned at a summit in Siberia. Okay. I didn't know this. Russia is warming 3 times faster than the rest of the world. Did you guys know that? That's amazing. With Arctic and Siberian regions warming 4 times faster than the global average. I'm guessing because they're Arctic regions. But that's nuts. This woman could release long dormant viruses which have been stored for millennia. Okay, so this is slightly different to what I heard. Alright, so on that note, I will leave you guys and I will see you next week for a nuclear energy, nuclear fusion, hilarious conspiracy theory about the Large Hadron Collider. Chuck me a follow, thanks for coming, thanks for all of your awesome suggestions. I think we've got a tab record here. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Thanks guys.